Welcome to From Embers to Excellence, a podcast that explores the many facets of leadership from the perspectives of some amazing people. We discuss the triumphs and failures that have shaped our lives and our leadership philosophies. It isn't whether we fail that defines us, but when we do fail, how do we respond? Leaders dust off the ashes and use their failures as fuel to work harder and as lessons to come back wiser and stronger, more resilient, more determined, and more committed to excellence. And now, here is your host, Dave Horlenbach.
Today, I'm talking with Autumn Clifford. She is a law enforcement professional with over 8 years of field experience. She is the host of the podcast, Changing the Culture, where she provides support to fellow first responders in relation to situations only we encounter. She's passionate about ending the suicide epidemic for first responders. She teaches emotional wellness, resiliency, and mindfulness for public safety professionals. She has a second-degree black belt and competed in both national and international competitions for many years. Autumn taught martial arts for over 10 years and ultimately developed her own self-defense company, teaching women to defend themselves and to build confidence. She has a bachelor's in science and criminal justice and psychology from Thomas College and a master of science in criminal justice, law enforcement administration from Southern New Hampshire University. She became a certified instructor at the Maine Criminal Justice Academy and a defensive tactics instructor. 6 years into her career, she injured her back while on the job and was told by doctors that full-time patrol would not be an option anymore. This led to some soul searching and ultimately toward what you are doing right now. We'll dive deeper into that, but right now I'd like to get a sense of your life's history and trajectory. Where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. I really appreciate it. And also, you did a really great job reading that. I'm really proud of you. You made me sound so good. So a little bit about me. So yeah, I've been in the martial arts since I've been 5 years old. I became a police officer when I was 20. But it was a little bit different. I have a little bit different of a story than most people. My husband, he's a state trooper. We met in the police academy. He wanted to be a state trooper since he's been 5 years old. He just knew. And that wasn't me. I actually never really knew what I wanted to do. It's just that I was a second-degree black belt. And I've been fighting since I've been 5 years old. I mean, I've been in a lot of fights at school. I've been in the ring, a lot of fights at my class, at my dojo. I trained like 4 to 5 nights a week in my entire high school career. And I was like 13 years old and I got promoted to go to the black belt class. And so I'm fighting big motherfuckers and they were not going easy on me. And so I graduated high school a year early and I said, screw everybody. I'm going to go waitress because at the time I was making a ton of money and I did. And my mother had a stroke because not like literally, but she was so upset because she wanted me to go to college. And I said, no, I'm going to go do this thing. I ended up doing hair in a hair salon. And if you know me for 5 seconds and you know, like, what the fuck were you doing? I was having like my early life crisis of figuring myself out and that didn't work out. And I just said, okay, I got to go to college. I'm going to be a police officer. My uncle was a chief of police and I was very close to my uncle. And my karate instructor was actually a police officer part-time. But so those were really the only two influences. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my uncle because he was the chief and he was busy as, all get up. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to take this black belt and I'm going to put it to good use. Like what other profession or career can I use this in? And you have to understand my whole life has been martial arts and then teaching it and being in a male dominated industry. It really was. I don't care what anybody says. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this. And then I went to college for it. I got an opportunity. The universe had my back. And I started out as a court security deputy working court security in the court, and making great relationships with judges. And then I worked as a transport deputy, transporting inmates across my whole state of Maine. So that's really how I got started.
Nice. So did you grow up in Maine?
Yeah, I grew up in central Maine near Augusta. Yeah, I was, one of these girls who, I was so funny that we're having this conversation. I was thinking about this like 2 hours ago. I was like 12 years old and thought I was a gangster. I don't know if anybody else like did that, but like I totally thought I was gangster. I have pictures of myself like wearing an Adidas visor, not a hat, a visor, like a little bit sideways. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, so that's where I come from.
So other than martial arts, did you do any sports in high school?
Yeah, I played basketball. I loved basketball, and I played that all up into my sophomore year. Sophomore year was I had to buckle down and I had to get my black belt. That was the deal in my house. My mom's like, you can do whatever you want, but when it comes time to get your black belt, like, you're going all in. And that was when sophomore year is when it picked up for me, and I was going to karate at the dojo, and it wasn't 1 hour a night. I'd get there at 4 and I would not leave until 10 p.m. every single night.
Wow.
I was teaching and training, and it was really my life. So obviously sports kind of set aside. One year, my freshman year in high school, I played field hockey. Or maybe it was 8th grade. I can't remember. I played field hockey, and first year ever playing, and I was nominated to be the captain. It didn't work out because it was a politic thing. Some girl was like, yo, I've been doing this a lot longer than you. Like, this is my, like, went to the coach and was like, no, like, I deserve this. And she did, like, if you talk about like longevity. And so that happened. I never played field hockey again. I didn't love that. I love basketball. But yeah, that's pretty much the sports. I mean, karate. I trained in, so when I say karate, I just want to be clear with everybody. So I have a black belt in Shotokan karate and jujitsu and judo. So my study is not just like straight up what you see on Cobra Kai. It's actually jujitsu and judo. I was trained in ninjutsu a little bit, and I took it upon myself. I went and boxed. And I trained in Muay Thai kickboxing. And then recently I started BJJ, which is different than the Japanese style of jujitsu that I trained in. And that's obviously very popular right now. My back really didn't love that. I mean, again, I'm wrestling big motherfuckers who just can't flow. They got to just crush you. And it's like, oh man, I'm injured, So martial arts kind of been set to the side right now a little bit.
So on that note, I've been doing jujitsu as well, and the BJJ, and what I discovered. So I'm 46 years old, and I I wrestled. I did Muay Thai in high school. I wrestled high school. After high school, did freestyle and Greco-Roman. I did like Aikido and
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of jazz. But this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so phenomenal. But
Mm-hmm.
my body feels it every
Oh
day.
yeah. Yeah.
So what I found is there's jiu-jitsu specific yoga
Yes.
that has been helping me tremendously.
Yep. Good.
So, and
That's awesome.
chiropractor as well. So
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about your childhood. Do you have any siblings?
No, only child.
Oh wow, cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spoil brat. Are you?
No, I've got um younger brother who he passed away in 2010,
I'm
and
sorry.
then an even younger half brother who lives in Vail, Colorado. Awesome guy. And then I have two older stepbrothers that live in Illinois. Um,
Cool.
so and really close to my cousins.
Yep.
So they're essentially siblings. Um,
Yeah,
pretty pretty close family.
that's
Um,
cool.
yeah. Growing up, what what did your father do? Your mom, like?
Yeah. So what's kind of cool is, and I just want to say, I love that you're asking these questions. Nobody ever asks questions. I've been on a lot of podcasts. I'm a podcast host myself, right? And nobody asks these questions. So this is really cool. Um, so I actually come from a family of entrepreneurs, and which is actually cool because now what I'm doing. So my father, he was an entrepreneur from the get-go, that guy. My father's he's an old school Mainer and he's from the streets. He is incredibly street smart. He doesn't even have his, I don't think he even has his GED from high school. He said, fuck high school, I'm out. And he just went to work, and he ran a pool hall, which is actually it's like this big pool hall in like central Maine. It's like this big deal. He actually started that and ran that with a partner of his. And then before he sold it, and then he went into taking down old barns and buildings, and he would sell the antique lumber. He like created this. This was like this is 20 years ago. My father like created this for himself. And he was doing excellent, did really good. He got a back injury, kind of interesting. And he ended up retiring. So my father is retired now. My mother is also an entrepreneur. She's a licensed massage therapist, but she does a lot of energy work. And if anybody knows anything about like the spiritual side, she's actually a shaman.
Nice.
So yeah, so spirituality has always been a really big foundation of my family. I went to Sunday school growing up, but not with my mom. Interestingly enough, my mom and dad didn't go. I went with my cousins, and it really gave me this beautiful foundation. And then with my mom's spirituality, she led me to being able to open a lot more doors. And so we talk about God and the universe interchangeably. For some Christians, they don't believe in that, but that's okay. To each his own. And she really helped me to work with like the universe and the powers bigger than me to achieve and manifest my life. And I will just say, if it wasn't for that, I would not be where I'm at. Specifically, like when I think of like the lowest times in my life, and if I didn't believe in a bigger power, if I wasn't constantly communicating with the universe, and I'm like, okay, show me a sign. You better show me a sign because I'm low. And it would, yeah, really helpful.
Nice. Can you give me, I don't know, a sense of your personal philosophy and beliefs?
My personal philosophy. Well, okay, so I'll tell you what, I'm not super original, but there's this book, and it's called The Universe Has Your Back. And it's by Gabrielle Bernstein, who's been a spiritual teacher of mine for years. That really like sums me up. I just truly believe that the universe or God has your back. I believe that we need to tap into the powers and start working with the universe. And here's what I believe: the universe is within us. And when you tap into your truth, when you tap into who you really are, and you start working with yourself instead of against yourself, your life is going to change in a way that you could just never um, like expect or understand until you're actually doing it. That's really what happened to me. So when I got injured, I got injured in the line of duty. I have a back injury. Actually, a lot of first responders probably have a very similar back injury to me. I have a degenerative disc. I have a bulge disc, but there's another word for it right now. And I have a tear in a herniated disc, and I have a tear. And what the problem here is the tear. Okay. And it's in my lowest back. It's like L5S1 or something. And that's where the doctors were like, I don't know. I don't know, Autumn. Like, I don't know. And that's what my doc said. He was like, I really don't know. I don't know about you, because what happens if you're in a fight, if you're lifting something heavy, like what happens and all of a sudden that shit tears? He's like, and then you can't walk again. Like, I really just don't know. And so we took that information. We're like, shit, right? Like shit. And my agency was like, okay, well, you can be a dispatcher. And I was like, are you fucking nuts? I'm a cop. I'm not a dispatcher. And no offense to any dispatchers, but my cops will understand that. Like when you're out on the road and you're type A and you're like out there doing the thing. You don't want to be a dispatcher. And so I had to get done the job. And when following that, what a lot of people don't understand, there was a lot with the agency that I went, like just a lot of stuff, whether the agency meant it or not, it was a lot of stuff. Like every officer got told not to talk to me. Done. Don't talk to her. Autumn, like, don't talk to her. She's not, and she's not going to be coming into this police department, like just all this shit. And so like my partner, who he and I would hang out with his significant other, like off duty and stuff. And like, I thought we were really close. I got uninvited from his wedding. And so like a lot of mental, emotional shit just took a toll. And then I started questioning my identity. You have to understand, not only am I this second degree black belt, I am halfway through my master's in criminal justice at this moment, right? And I'm an instructor at the police academy and I'm all these things, but it has to do with being a cop, right? So I'm like, I met my husband, he's a trooper. I met him in the academy and I'm like, who am I? Who am I? I went through this massive identity crisis and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? Like in my mind, I'm like, I guess I have to be a probation officer. Like that's the next thing I have to do because what else can I do with all of this criteria, right? Like with my credentials, like what can I go do? And I hit a really big depression. There was 3 to 6 months where I was like not getting out of bed. My back was killing me. Sitting, I couldn't sit for long periods of times. I couldn't stand for long periods of times. I had to lay down a lot. And I was going and seeing my chiropractic neurologist 3 to 5 days a week, Dave. That's a lot. Okay. And, and I'm on this pain med and this, and I'm like refusing to take all of it. Like just wouldn't take the steroid because it was just making me fat. And I'm like, I just can't do this. So I'm in like all this pain and I'm in this like mind fuck and I'm depressed, and so like when I tell people like, look, like I know what it's like to be depressed. Like I know, and not for just a short period of time. Like my husband used to sit on the edge of my bed and be like, babe, listen, where did my girlfriend go? At the time we were just boyfriend, girlfriend. And he's like, where did she go? Like, you're not who I got with. I don't know who you are. Like, what's going on? And I'd be like, I'd pull the covers up over my head. I'm like, yeah, bye. Like, I don't want to talk to you. You don't understand what I'm going through. You don't know what this is like. Nobody knows what this is like. Fuck everybody. Like that's really how I felt. And I know a lot of people listening can relate to that. And Dave, if it wasn't for, some people call it grace, some people call it God, I call it my angels. If it wasn't for that, I don't know what would have happened. I just started getting this inclining my mother who's amazing and she really is amazing. I come from an Italian family. So my family, we don't beat around the bush about anything. Okay. Like nothing. On Christmas, it's, hey, you motherfucker, how's it going? And that's just how we talk. Okay. So my mom calls me up. Yep. I've had enough of this. You need to listen to me. And I'm like, no, yep, you do. She starts sending me some videos of Tony Robbins because she knew that I loved him. And so I listened to Tony Robbins. I listened to Gabby Bernstein. I listened to some Eric Thomas, one of the best motivational speakers of our time. And they really got me out of bed. And I really believe that was the universe. And then when I got out of bed, I didn't immediately go, okay, I'm going to start a business. It was maybe I could do something with this. Maybe this is happening for me, not to me. Remember that. Underline that. Anybody listening, maybe this is happening for me, not to me. And because I was just a little bit optimistic, it was like the floodgates would open up. And now listen, let's just be honest. I'm crushing like 3 to 6 months of time period. Like it wasn't just like this day and I was like, oh, and like the lights came shining down or anything. It took a lot of time, but that really changed my life and got me to where I am and who I am today and what I'm doing.
Nice. It's really interesting. There are a lot of parallels between you and I. I'll give you a story. I haven't talked about this on the show.
Look at us doing new things. I like it.
Yeah. So I got hired on the fire department in '99,
Mhm.
and I grew up in the fire service. My dad retired from the department I got hired on with, and I just grew up with these guys that I eventually started working with, and I've got the same name as my dad. I started working there. Everybody kind of knew me. Uh, I was very, very motivated, really gung ho. I wanted to be, that macho smoke eater firefighter, um, and I was all in. Um, but I was young, and uh, I had taken some time after the first semester of paramedic school and went down south, South Florida, to visit family and friends. And it happened to be over the winter break. And on the morning of December 31st, 2000, I, uh, or I'm sorry, yeah, December 31st, 2000, I was doing, I think they clocked me at 72 miles an hour in a 25. Um, and I had been drinking, and ultimately I was arrested for DUI. And
Mm.
then some additional incidents where, it was minor disciplinary infractions, but they fell on the heels of that DUI. I ended up getting terminated from the department that I grew up in, and
Mm.
everybody knew me, knew my dad. What a stain on my dad's legacy, and it was very, very humbling. And I went into a really deep depression, um, but I didn't have any way to pay my bills, so I went back to work doing the stuff that I had put myself through school doing, construction. And I would say, so I was terminated July of 2001, and September 8th, 2001, I fell off of a three-story apartment building and broke my
Wow.
back.
Oh shit. So you
And
can relate to me.
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so many parallels, and so I was on my couch, high as a kite on OxyContin, uh, with the TV on, and my mom calls me that morning, September 11th,
Mm-hmm.
s- you know, crying about us being attacked, and it was on my TV. I just thought I was watching a movie, and I was really rude to her and hung up on her because I thought, man, she's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and then from that day forward, I never took another painkiller.
Wow.
So I was taking ibuprofen for a broken back.
Yeah, I can relate.
uh so again, I'm watching my brothers
Yes.
die. People that I'd worked with were traveling up to New York. People that I knew were going to Ground Zero to help, and I'm confined to my couch or my bed. So I
Yes.
went into this depression,
Mm.
and I'm like, woe is me. What a fuck up am I? I just ruined my life, and now I'll never be a firefighter again. And it's all a result of my immaturity, my poor decisions, and I my family started worrying about me because I just kind of went off the grid, and unbeknownst to me, people were checking in on me to make sure that I hadn't offed myself. and
I can imagine.
and at one point, my uncle Al, my Aunt Virginia's husband, he called me concerned, and we talked for a while. And one of the things they said to me, because I just started unloading, and he was like, "Listen, you can allow that to define you, or you can use it as fuel to make
Mm,
yourself better. You
mm,
can you can actually define how others view you through your actions, how you overcome this this situation." And so from that point forward, I was determined to strengthen my back and, get back into the fire department. And, through the grievance process, I ended up getting my job back, and, the rest is history. But that was such a difficult time where, you feel like you're broken.
yes.
And yeah, nobody can understand.
No.
And it's easy to basically have that attitude like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I don't want to hear it. Just don't even talk to me.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. And when you're in that low, and I maybe you can agree, is there really was nobody who could understand. There wasn't all these podcasts. There wasn't anybody out there like, hey, I'm a cop for for you. Like, I'm a firefighter. I've been there. I've been where you are. There was nobody. I felt just like you. Like, I felt ashamed, especially being a female. And like, I'm not pulling the female card, but I am, because like you do have to be a certain kind of, if you want to be squared away and respected as a first responder, period, you need to be of a certain caliber. We know that. But then when you're a female and you're the underdog, like, you have to be of this certain caliber. And I knew that. And that was no problem for me, because naturally, I mean, I know, and I know I sound very arrogant, but it's the truth. And I'll own that. Like, naturally, I have very good command presence. I've been punched in the face. I've seen the light. I've almost been knocked out. Like, I've been in fights. So for me, going and being a police officer, going on these calls, like, that was never an issue for me, right? That was very natural for me. So it was very, very humiliating and embarrassing for me to be like, fuck, like, yeah, I'm being a weak link, like, I'm being whatever, and everybody, I don't know. So it's definitely this mind fuck. What for your situation and mine, here's where my head goes. Where was the agency prior? Like, where was the agency to help you? Obviously, so when you got, your DUI, like, obviously there's a lot more issues that come or came prior to that, and like, where are our agencies with helping us with that? It's like, they teach us, I can't speak for what it's like to be a firefighter, okay? But I can tell you, as a police officer, they pretty much dehumanize us in the academy, because we have to. And I get that. Like, you don't want me full of emotion dealing with some shit that I have to deal with and have to see, same shit that you firefighters have to see and deal with. Like, you don't want me full of emotion there. No. But you're not teaching me how to process it. We got like a 1 hour fucking block on, like, you might see some shit and it's okay. I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, that's it? And our agencies are hanging us out to dry. And I'm not trying to be negative, but it's just the truth. It's just, we look at the suicide statistics, firefighters saying, like, we are losing our men and women in fire, in law enforcement. Corrections is going completely under fucking radar. Completely. You can't find a whole lot about corrections officers. But I mean, I know the suicide rates are crazy high there too. I mean, we're losing more to suicide than we are in the line of duty for all of us. So what does that say? It says, it says that we have issues. There's an issue there. Why are we not addressing it? And that's like with what you went through, is like, your agency should have, or could have, I shouldn't say should, but could have maybe been there, and been like, oh shit, instead of firing this guy, maybe this guy's stressed out. Maybe he exhibited some signs and we just weren't paying attention.
that really goes to the stigma surrounding PTSD. I mean, because it's funny that you should mention that, because in my first year, there was a series of calls that there was a tipping point. So, I'm macho. I'm seeing all this. cool stuff. There's uh, I'll give you just a brief series of events that happened prior to this incident that I'm going to tell you about. So, run this call, 18-year-old on a brand new motorcycle, T-bones plumbing truck that ran a stop sign and went right into his path. T-bones it along with another car. The plumbing truck flips. The only thing that we can really guess is that this kid's helmet hit right on the corner of the toolbox of the plumbing truck, because the helmet, full face helmet, it was split right down the middle. It was together when we pulled it off of his head. When we arrived on scene, he's in the middle of this just giant pool of coagulated blood.
I bet.
And we rolled him over, and it just felt like this sack of rocks. There was no bones intact. They were just fragments under his skin. And when we pulled the helmet off, his face opened up and his brain was completely, it was gone. It was just, there was no brain in his skull. And we saw chunks of it in the road.
Shit.
So there was that. And then shortly after that was a multiple vehicle accident at this major intersection, whereas the main priority was this station wagon that had a family with a bunch of kids. The woman in the passenger side front seat was holding a baby. There was 3 kids and that baby that were ejected from the vehicle. And when we arrived on scene, it was just horrendous. People were freaking out, and I was at a 1-engine station, and the closest EMS units were 10 minutes away.
Yeah, that's never fun. That's never fun.
So, and it was right around the corner from the station, so we were there before law enforcement, everybody, and it was horrendous. Next call that just triggered this conversation at the station. It was almost shift change. We get called for an auto versus pedestrian. This group of middle school kids tried running across this road. Well, the chubby girl of the group couldn't run as fast as the other kids, and she got nailed. And when we got on scene, her shoes were 50 yards away, and she had that deer in a headlight look, and she was like clawing her way away from the car that hit her, and her leg was dragging behind her. Just a piece of muscle was keeping it on, attached to her body. And I was like, what the, arrive on scene, and it's like, holy shit, what do we get back to the station after that, and the oncoming shift is in the bay. We come in, we sit down at the table, and we're talking. And I was like, talking to these senior guys, and I'm like, hey, I've only been here for a few months, but I've seen like some pretty horrendous things. I can only imagine what you guys have seen. Like, do you guys have nightmares, or, like, how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure it adds up. And this guy pushes away from the table. He's like this senior guy, very well respected. I looked up to him, and he pushes away, and he's like, Jesus fucking Christ, you fucking pussy. Are you kidding me? How long you been on the job? You might want to rethink your choice in career here. Like, I'm sure they're hiring at Home Depot. You might want to think about it. Like, if you're already concerned about what you've seen, then this clearly isn't the job for you. And I was like, no, I'm cool. I was just wondering about you guys. So, for 20 years, I didn't say another word.
Mm-hmm.
And that shit added up.
Oh, fuck yeah. And that's, and here's the thing, right? Like everybody's so big into like, okay, so here's what we hear. This is what happens. And just for everybody listening, I'm about to get on my soapbox. This is my bread and butter. Okay. So I've built an entire company around helping first responders with their emotional and mental resiliency. Okay. So here's the thing, Dave. It's like this. We have people over here just like that guy, right? It's like, what are you doing, Junior? Get the fuck out of here. You're a puss bag. You don't belong in the job. Then we come way on the other end of the spectrum, and it's like, everybody should go to counseling. And here's what I want to say. I've been to a counselor. I'm not talking shit, okay? But in the middle, you know what would just alleviate so much shit? Productive briefings. I can tell you in law enforcement, and I know FDs like this because I know you guys have time to shoot the shit. Like, let's just be honest, you guys got movie theaters and stuff. Like, it's pretty cool. Like, but like, we have the time to have productive briefings, meaning if we just all shot the shit and just chatted about things, but like productively, and like our leaders, our supervisors were actually trained like in emotional intelligence and was like, listen, no, you have to have these conversations and you don't get to cut them up short. You don't, throw some busting of the balls in there a little bit because it just wouldn't be, we wouldn't be first responders if we didn't do that shit. But like, if we could just talk and process together, do you realize how much better we would all feel? Number one, and number two, how it would bring us all closer together. And there would not be as much cutthroat and backstabbingness that's going on. I was talking to, I can't remember, there was a debrief I was a part of. And in it, there was this officer and they were like dealing with this situation. I can't really remember what it was specifically, but at the end of the briefing, this officer was like, I'm so glad we did this because I'm not going to lie. I was kind of pissed off at Frank. Like, Frank, I was really pissed off at you because I didn't understand why you did what you did. Is in my opinion, you should have done this. But now that I know what was going through your head and what you saw that I wasn't seeing, I get it, man. Like, I would have done what you did too. And like, I'm so glad we had this conversation. And I'm like, it is that fucking simple. It is that fucking simple. And that conversation would have like helped you. Can you imagine 20 years in fire service? And if you just daily, we spent half an hour, just kind of, hey, that call, man, that really that was fucked up. Like, that was fucked up. Like, how are you guys doing? What did you see? What did you see? What did you see? If we did that, we would solve so many problems. But yet, oh no, we can't do that. And if you want to talk about your problems, you better go get a counselor. That's the mindset.
Yeah. And let's talk about the counselors. I don't know how it is in Maine, but we have the employee assistance program where you can go and you get like 5 sessions for free or whatever. And it's never anybody that, in my experience, it's never anybody that specializes in PTSD or traumatic events centered in public safety or first responders.
100%. 100%. And that's why I'm telling you the whole idea of like, let's just change that briefing. Like, so I'm going to just tell you a little bit about like what I'm doing right now. Okay. So, I have created this, it's called emotional tactics training. Okay. You can become an emotional tactics instructor, or you can call it life coaching. I have some people who are calling it life coaching and they will get the certification that they are certified life coach under me. I've been doing this for, over 6 years. I have a little bit of an idea. If agencies would just do this, Dave, right? If we would just train up our guys, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Let's just train up our people. And so that it's not to go out and be you don't have to go be this big wig, right? Like, so if the person listening to me right now is like, Yeah, I don't really want to go train. I don't want to train somebody. I would much rather just kind of get trained myself and then like bring it to the agency kind of like on the DL. I've done that. I've taken a lot of different trainings that I just took and like I wasn't like, okay, now I'm an instructor and I'm gonna teach you, right? Like sometimes we don't want to do that. But like if we just got, trained in the right stuff, and then we slowly start changing the culture together. And it's like, administrations and leaders start really opening the door to talk about like, yo, like, we're not always going to talk about your feelings, but like right now, because we respect one another, we do not respect somebody who's not one of us. Is, very few and far between do we do that. And that's the truth. Just touching on your point is like we have counselors and stuff who are great, but they might just not be great for first responders. Or we start going to them and then we're like, this fucking idiot doesn't understand me. And it's not because they're an actual idiot. It's just that, we are unique. We are special individuals who run towards, gunfire, run towards fire, and while everybody else is running away. And so you have to kind of be on our level. If we're gonna buy into you, you got to be on our level. So
Yeah. Now, just to shift gears a little bit, because I want to get some perspective on what it's like being a woman in a male dominated occupation. So what was the hardest challenge that you had to overcome to get into law enforcement, and how did you overcome that? Or maybe what was the hardest challenge you had to overcome once you were in law enforcement?
I think here's the deal. I think that the biggest challenge for every female, doesn't matter if you're a firefighter, an EMT, correctional officer, or a cop, is respect. Okay. And I know that because I'm judging a rook immediately. And I'll tell you why. Backup is everything in law enforcement. Okay. If you're a shit show, but you have my back, like, and if shit goes bad, I know you're gonna help me, whatever, I'll deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, but we have a lot of females. I actually just made a reel about this. I'm really funny about this. And I get a lot of people, I catch some flack because some females, they get offended, which I have to tell you, this
I
face
think
to
I think I saw what you're talking about. Is that where you had your hair all done up and
absolutely. I do not give a shit, okay? Because it was a reel about this girl who's got her hair all curled up, and on the first day she walks into the PD like, "Hey," with her hair all done. And then, I was in my police uniform. I like to that song, "Oh no, oh no, no, no," and like I made a face, and that's the truth. It really is the truth. And here's what I want to say is like, I feel like I'm an expert in this category because I've done it. I showed up like when pre going to like full-time law enforcement, I was this like deputy, right? And what did I do? I showed up to my interview looking like a really pretty female. Okay, well, nobody told me that's not what you do. You don't do that. You look like a cop. You pin your hair back. If you're gonna wear makeup, make it only be mascara, and do not wear high heels. Like, because they have to picture you in a uniform. They need to know what you're going to be like professionally in a uniform. Nobody told me that shit, right? And so I bust on other women, and I bust on that because that was me. I learned the hard way. Don't do that. I got judged within the first 3 months of my career. Everybody thought like I got labeled this huge slut, and I wasn't. And I had a boyfriend. Like, I wasn't sleeping around or anything. But what happened is I was pretty and bubbly personality, right? And that's just who I am. But there was a lot that I didn't realize. And so just to kind of go back to, just to go back to your question, is like, respect is really huge. That's like for every female being in a male dominated world, especially being a police officer, like I had to earn respect. And it took a while. It took a little while because
and how did you do that?
well, I'll tell you about one call that was really, here's how you do that. First off, is you get your shit together and you put your hair back. Okay. None of this, how my hair is right now, dangly, you do that. You don't need to be caked in makeup. Okay. You're beautiful without it. It's not a beauty pageant. You can look good. You can put some makeup on, but just know that, because everyone is wondering like what the heck is going on. And the third thing is do martial arts and train in martial arts, because I was never afraid to take a punch. In fact, they would call me the pit bull, because I would be in the situation. I'm calling people on their bluff. Like before any guy was going to be into a fight, I was already there. I'm like, no, fuck you, I'm in. And that, like, it was, to them, it was like they never had to worry about me. They were never like, because there's a lot of people, men and women, who just cause a lot of issues. They just cause issues when we're going to calls. Like, I'll never forget like dealing with a female officer who was just like just a guy needed to be arrested. He was a belligerent asshole, and we had been getting calls on him all night long, and he was a dick, and she's just sitting there talking to him. And finally I pushed her out of the fucking way, and I was like, you're coming with me, and I don't give a fuck. And you know what he did? He didn't even fight me, probably because I caught him off guard, but there's my command presence. But we have to earn our respect by that way. And I tell every female who wants to be a police officer, you need to go and you need to take martial arts. Probably in the firehouse, it's really just do what the guys do, or if not as good as you guys do, a little bit better, and just try to be one of the guys to an extent, because I do believe that when we need women, we need the balance, but don't misunderstand. You are in a like this is a male dominated career, has been since the beginning, and there's a reason for that. There's not a lot of women that can hack it. It's just the truth. But one of the calls that was really life-changing for me, I was a deputy, and there was this big guy, and I mean like 6'5", like 250, and he and his baby mama just went through like a divorce hearing or a custody battle, and those really got really bad, and I'm in the courthouse, and something happened, and he and I ended up outside, and he started running his mouth, and this was pure instinct for me, because I hadn't gone to the academy, but this is just who I was. I got on the radio, just told my guys, I said, yeah, I got an uncooperative male out front. They came. Before they even got there, I wasn't even thinking about them. I was dealing with this guy. Like, I was like, now you listen here. And if it would have went bad, honestly, he probably could have kicked my ass. Like I mean, I had a few positions that I could have really like got his knees, kicked him in the groin. Like I could have done a little something, but like if he really wanted to kick my ass, he could have, really, because he was huge. And but I made him think that I was bigger than him that moment. And I just told him, look, like, and I just got on his level, and I'm like, she's a bitch. Like, don't worry about her. But I'm telling you right now, you're not coming in my courthouse treating me like this. I'll be goddamned. And he's like, ma'am, I'm sorry, ma'am. So my backup comes out as he's saying, I'm sorry. You're right. I was wrong. And like, the guys were like, holy shit. They saw my presence. They saw what I was saying. They saw that I wasn't just fueling the fire. I was actually using verbal judo. I was actually getting him to understand. I wasn't being this. I know in like these stories, sometimes it really does sound like I'm just being like this instigator, but I really wasn't. I talked him into really realizing he was being a dick. And he realized it. He said he was sorry. He got in his car and left. And like, I turned around and they were like, they actually were giving me a like clapping. And these were like older senior guys who've been doing police work for 15, 20 years. And they're like, that's awesome. Like, holy shit, didn't know you had it in you. Like, that was awesome. Like, you're one of us now. Like, that was the day, like, they accepted me because they knew I could handle it on my own. Nobody likes to have to take care of somebody else. We don't get in the job to take care of each other that way. We all kind of want to be, like neck and neck, shoulder to shoulder when we go and deal with things, right? And we have each other's backs, but like, don't be a fuck up, man, And so I really think that's how I earned respect. And I think every female could go back and listen to that story and really take a few things away to help them moving forward.
Yeah. Now, I've heard a couple comments in the past about women in law enforcement, the military, the fire service, and I've heard women say this, not just men, but that when the shit hits the fan, you don't want some woman trying to pull you out of harm's way. You want, a big burly guy grabbing you because a woman's not going to be able to do it. Just physiologically, it can't. They just can't do it. Now, I disagree with that, but I want to get some perspective. Like, how tall are you? And I mean,
So I'm built like a brick shit house. I'm 5'6.5". I'm like I don't know, a buck 70, buck 75. And like,
so pretty diesel.
yeah, I can take a punch, but I can pack a punch. And let me tell you something right now. If I need to get you the fuck out of the way, I'll get you out of the way. But I'm gonna tell you, and this is where mindset comes into play. I know girls my size and they're fluffy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not fluffy. I'm wearing a baggy sweater, but I'm not fluffy. I don't live in a gym, like if you catch my drift, but like, I'm just naturally this way. And so like I'll get you the fuck out of the way. Also, as you know, as being a lifetime martial artist, I'll manipulate you. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll bring you where you need to go, so I don't know. I mean, being a female in a male dominated world, you're always the underdog. And I'm not going to say like men are stronger than us. I'm not going to sit here and play dumb. Of course, of course. And I respect the hell out of, that. So, I mean, yeah, obviously there's been a lot of times where I had to pick up like dead bodies and I had to, do kick down doors and shit. And like when I see a male counterpart, I'm like, hell yeah, thanks, buddy. 'Cause, you can do this a lot better than I can.
Well, so I want to throw uh, some facts out there because I know it's a misperception. It's not accurate. It's not gender that determines a person's ability
Mm,
to do the job.
mhm.
It's an individual's drive and how hard they train to be able to accomplish the mission.
Yes.
And at my department, we trained extensively on, and it was specifically with people that are bigger than you and dragging them out and using proper mechanics
Mhm.
to make it happen. Now, there's a ton of studies when you have a RIT activation on the fire ground. So RIT stands for Rapid Intervention Team. So if just say there's a roof collapse and you've got a team of people inside, or just for example, one person gets trapped, they the studies show that it's going to take a minimum of 8 firefighters to extricate one firefighter.
Wow.
So the you know if the situation is that one person goes down and you've got your partner with you, there are mechanics. If there's no entrapment or anything like that, you can grab them a certain way and you use proper body mechanics to drag them out. You don't have to be bigger than that person. You just got to know how to manipulate their body and how to use your body to get the
Mhm.
momentum to drag them out and out of harm's way. So I'm 200 pounds with all of my gear on, probably 250, 260. I have been drug out of a training prop that, with rough plywood floors and carpet and stuff like that, where there's friction. It's not like a slick surface. And I've had a 5'2" woman grab me and pull me out.
Mhm.
And that was a big eye opener for our entire department to go through that training because I know that there was a mindset that, you know, I, I don't want to be in there with
Mhm.
her, but
Mhm.
the thing is that there's little guys on the department too.
There are. Mhm.
So this whole
I
thing,
just
and
think I think it's again, right? I just think it's the theme of like 2020, maybe moving into 2021. We really can't judge books by their cover. We just can't. And it's so much to the person. I mean, there's little teeny weeny cops. You know what I mean? Who I'm like, please, males. I'm like, oh no, I'd take her over you. Like, get away. You know what I mean? And it's the same, in fire, but it's what's in here. It's what's in the heart. Yeah. If they're like, no, like I got this, and they put everything they have into it, like I'll take that 5'2" female, whatever. You know.
I had a question. Did being female hinder any of your goals in law enforcement?
So the last department that I worked for, okay, here's what I'm going to say. Sexism is real. I'm just going to be honest. And the last department I worked for, to give you an example, they only, still to this day, only have a female in a corporal position. They have sergeants, lieutenants, deputy chiefs, and chiefs. And there's no female in those positions. Um, in the first department I worked for, there's no females in any command positions. Okay. Like that's a bunch of bullshit. All right. And the department that I love, it was like my middle department that I only left just because my husband, he lives like his state police sent him 2 hours south of where my department was. And so it was just easier for me to relocate. That's true love. Okay. That's really true love because I loved that department. And they actually have one female in the sergeant position. There it's like, so how many females are in these departments? My last department, they have like an entire shift full of females, so it's not like they're few and far between. I mean, there was 5 or 6 of us. It's a 50-person department, and included every single position. Not that big department, and there's no need of it. So yeah, do I think so? Yeah, I mean, we have some. The truth is, and I'll call a spade, is we have a lot of conservative, old school chiefs who, you know, have their head right up their ass. That's the truth. And that's what we're fighting. So I have a company, it's called Changing the Culture. That's what my podcast is called. And I'm out here working to get into police departments and really, administer trainings. We're building a nonprofit, which I'm really excited about, so that money no longer becomes an issue, because it'll just be like, okay, we're coming in, we're going to help, you don't need to pay us. Anyways, the biggest hurdle I'm finding, Dave, are these department heads, where they're just like, oh no, we've been doing it this way for so long and we are okay. And maybe the statistics out there are like this, but we are okay. And it's like, holy cow. And I think it probably, if I'm honest, a piece of me just wonders if that like stops a lot of like what I'm looking to have happen as well. Like I told you, really looking at training police departments, getting in there, being a resource for these officers, like teaching just like simple skills, like emotional wellness and resiliency in a way that's really out of the box. I'm super out of the box, but I'm one of you. I'm a first responder, and so I have really really great traction. And I have really good luck with cutting through the bullshit, because if you talk, if anybody's been listening to this for more than 5 minutes, and I'm really a straight shooter, is really, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. And most first responders respect that, is that's all we're looking for. We deal with bullshit all day long. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to hear it. Right. And, sometimes I wonder if being a female, I think a lot of chiefs are like, it's fucking crazy female, and so I don't know. I mean, I don't like pulling the female card very much, honestly. I don't let it be an excuse, and I'll be honest. But I mean, maybe it could. I have no idea. Again, I just don't let it be an excuse. I say, all right, let's keep going. If you say no, there's, thousands more I'm going to. Someone is going to say yes.
A lot of what you teach, it feels to me a lot like what I've and what a lot of other people term self-leadership, being an effective self-leader, that resiliency component, emotional intelligence, that sort of thing. Can you give me an idea of your personal leadership philosophy?
Well, I lead from the front. I would
Clearly.
never, yeah, I would never ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do. I'm really big. So right now I'm teaching a life coaching certification. By the time this airs, this will be closed. But the values, right, that I'm teaching in this course is communication, leadership, and resiliency. And that's really what my company is all about. That's who I am personally, right? Because communication is huge. Like I told you, I grew up in an Italian family. Communication is not our strong point. Okay. It just isn't. Like, it just isn't. I had to learn that. I learned that through the job, through being married, and through this company, and through my business of really helping other first responders. Um, I think that's really important, especially if you want to be a leader. You have to communicate. So many people just expect people to do certain things and then get so upset when they don't do them. But I'm like, yo, whoa, do they even know? Like, what are you doing? And how's your communication? And and then we start getting mad and being short with people. And then their performance goes down. And then we're like, oh, that fucking guy's lazy. And it's like, well, is he lazy, or does he just not know what's expected of him? Or were you short with him? And who the fuck wants to do anything for somebody who's an asshole? I don't, you don't, none of us do. So I just think communication is huge, and it goes right into leadership. Like, if the better communicator you are, the better leader you're going to be. And, you know, leadership, right? You got to be respected. And you know how you be respected? You never demand respect. You earn it by respecting the people who you are leading. Think about that, and think about, I just have this huge philosophy. I've been in leadership capacities my whole life, as in the especially in the martial arts. I mean, I was on a part of a sport karate team, and I led my sport karate team to multiple championships. um I was young, and I was young teaching these young martial arts, and I'm like 13 years old, and I had to figure it out, because why would anybody, I was teaching adults, and it's like I had to really figure out how to be a leader, right? And I think, that's so big, is just giving respect. In order to get it, you have to give it, and you have to really care about people, and never ever 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 ask your person to do something that you wouldn't do or haven't already done. And that's really, I'm really big on that. And then we have resiliency, to define that as your ability to bounce back, truly. And I live by that. And what helps me is a lot of mindset work. I am constantly, I've created this process of, which is what I teach in my courses. Basically, it's just like we have to retrain our brain and flip our thoughts. And, you know, um, I do a lot of that. I do a lot of journaling. I exercise. I do meditate. Not, I know a lot of people don't get behind that. That it's good for me. A lot of different other techniques. I'm constantly growing my brain, constantly. I'm never the same person I was a month ago. I'm constantly evolving. And if you're that and a leader, if your leader is doing that, you want to do that. Right. If you see somebody who you look up to is constantly making themselves better and better and better, you want to be better, because you're like, I'm coming with you. I'm coming with you, especially if you like them,
Yeah. Yeah. And just to play off of something you said, communication being that foundation of sound leadership, but that's also the best way to show somebody that you respect them, by communicating with them and actually listening to what they have to say.
100%.
So yeah, and that way you're building trust, and you can build that cohesion uh, with your team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, how has your leadership philosophy been shaped by others? And you spoke about your personal experiences. teaching martial arts and leading the competitive team. But I'm sure you've learned just as much from your failures as you have with your successes.
I
Can
learned more from failing.
Oh,
Absolutely. And I think what's shaped my and listen, I'm not saying I'm a perfect leader. I will say that I do think I'm very good at it. I will tell you, I have a lot of first responders that take money every single month out of their pocket, give it to me to work with me and be around me. My officers, they don't leave me. I mean, we're going on 3 years, 2 or 3, I think it's 3 years in April. We've been together. I have a lot of one-on-one clients paying me good money to be with me. And the only reason I believe that that is happening and they're getting the results that they're getting is because of my leadership skills. And the reason I have honed in my craft, okay, is because I've had a lot of bad leaders. That really drove me to be okay with getting out of police work, like, and not being like, okay, I'm gonna go get surgery and like I'm gonna make this work. Cause like, let's be real, maybe that could have been an option. But I was like, you know what? My sergeant was playing video games our entire shift. And then when he saw me call someone on their shit, like somebody who I was dealing with in the public, he would tell me I'm too curt. Okay. Like he went and looked that up in the dictionary just to put that on my eval. He really did. Like that's awful leadership. Yeah, no, truly. That's awful leadership. He also wrote me up for saying fuck in my cruiser when there was on Christmas Eve, 10 minutes prior to me going home, there was a 10-person fight in the middle of the street. I'm in my cruiser and I said, what the fuck? But my lights were activated. So it started like recording and he wrote me up for that. That is awful leadership. Like that's just he was just busting my balls. He just didn't like me. Now, listen to me. I'm type A. I'm a motherfucker. I know that. But if you're a strong leader, then you're going to like me because I'm going to be your best friend and I'm going to make you look really fucking good. Right. Yeah, I led my shift in numbers constantly. That's why every sergeant wanted me on their shift is because admin would get out of their ass because I was always busy because I'm like, I can't sit still. Right. But I had a lot of really bad leaders, really bad, awful from the chief down. And I just fucking was like, I hated them so bad and like hated how they led so bad. I was like, I will never be like you. And you are the reason why the culture sucks. Like you just it. And yeah. Well, we see a lot of it. And everybody listening to this right now can relate to that. So do what I did. Take that and let it make you better and don't dwell on it. Just be like sitting in the back of your head and be like, you are an idiot because you are a bad leader, but I'm going to take that and I'm going to not forget that. And I'm going to apply it to make myself a really good leader.
one of the things that I've talked about on the show previously is my theory on why there's a leadership vacuum in the fire service. And based on some of my conversations with law enforcement personnel, it's the same in law enforcement as well. There's a leadership vacuum. And I believe that it's directly related to that old school mentality. You've got the
100%.
the
We've been doing it this way forever, so we're not going to change.
and typically the individuals in charge are older white men, and
It's true.
they're kind of set in their ways. They've got them in that mentality that whether they vocalize it or not, just through their actions or their lack of action, that they could give two shits if there's more women in the industry or not. And you can look at the makeup of the departments, those agencies. Some of the more progressive agencies, they'll have more women, and they'll have more women, like good women in leadership positions. They're able to recruit good women and retain them in the agency. To me, that's a sign of really good leadership at the top. Unfortunately, that's not commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that, I've hypothesized is that women bring a different perspective, a different type of leadership action to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And men are stronger in other parts. Just to talk about emotional intelligence, by and large, women are better communicators. They're better at empathizing, better at connecting on a personal level with their people. And men aren't typically the best communicators, and they
No,
could really give two shits. If you work for me, and this is bad leadership, but if you work for me, you just do what I say. I'm the one in charge.
100%.
So I feel like the culture in public safety has got to change to be more inclusive of women, do a better job at retaining good, solid women leaders so that, good leadership, both male and female, can kind of collaborate and complement one another. And then we end up with good, solid leadership like you would see in like a Fortune 500 company that
Mm-hmm.
has good, solid female leadership, and the men and women work together and have great, great outcomes.
Yep.
Um, I just, in your experience, maybe in your first department, is that the department where uh, you said it was pretty good as far as women, and
My second department. Yeah.
the second department was good as far as inclusivity?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how would you, what would you say the chief of that department was doing right?
Well, I'll tell you what. The deputy chief, who is now the chief, when I was there, he was the deputy chief. He would come down every single day in briefing and shoot the shit. He was one of us. He was on the special response team, so he would train with us. One of my first week there, they put me. I had to go to and train with the SRT, and I had to get into a fight with the deputy chief. And so I'm on his back, and I jumped on his back because this guy's like, he's a hockey player, like stocky dude. I jump on his back and I get him in the like lion choke, and he's like tapping out. And I'm like, "Dad, take that." He's like, "All right, I'll take it." And he was cool. Like you never felt like he was judging you. Obviously, he wanted things done appropriately, but he just was one of us. And he respected a squared away woman. It wasn't about male or female. It was like, can you do the fucking job? That's it. And it didn't matter. And that department's a get up department, is the busiest department in my state per officer, because they're really low on officers. So there's other like higher, like other cities with more calls, but like they have a lot of officers. So the officers weren't going to as many calls. I was going to more calls. I was the busiest, that agency, those officers, we were the busiest in the state. And so we got a lot of experience, but you had to hack it. You had to be able to hack it. It would be nothing to be in 3 fights in one night, arrest 2 people, and deal with a dead body. That would be nothing in one night. Like, that's what we dealt with. And that's a lot, your emotions, the hypervigilance pattern, like it was a lot, but he was cool, and he was very involved, but not micromanaging, just involved. And it was all about, can you do the job, and then I go to another department, and they just, we have to have a female or 2 because of the numbers, right? Because if we don't have any females, that doesn't look good. But we're just going to keep them where we can control them. So CID is like about the highest they're going to go, and like we're just going to keep them there, and that was that environment. And my last department, some facts on that is a 50-person department, and within the last 7 years they've had a turnover rate of 50 employees. So that should be an indication of some serious fucking leadership issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are your thoughts on my hypothesis? Do you have anything
Of
to
what? Say
add?
it again.
The hypothesis of, the culture needs to change in order to have more women in leadership positions, more retainment, and in turn, that would really cause that leadership vacuum to deteriorate.
100%. I mean, I think we need to understand is that men and women balance each other out. Okay. This world would not be great. And we probably wouldn't, we wouldn't have anybody if it was just one sex. Like we balance each other out. That's just how it is. And so I think that we're ignorant to think that, our law enforcement, our first responders, our FDs, our correctional facilities, like if we do not have the proper like checks and balances of a man who's the head and the woman who's the head and like you know what I mean, and balancing each other out and really working together, I think that we have yet to see how successful that can be. But I have to say that in this day and age with all the turbulence and all of the massive changing that we're seeing, a lot of we can all have our opinions on a lot of it, and we don't need to get into that, but I can say that I do think that we are going to see some positive change, as far as that, that obviously none of us want to see a department head get in the job who can't do the job, who's awful. None of us want to see that, male or female. But I do think that, as we can incorporate more females in, squared away females who've done the job, know the job, great leaders, just as the same as males, I think that we are going to have much better run departments. And we are going to see a decline in suicides because women give a shit. Women want to talk about your feelings, like we just do, and the in my opinion, we are having such mental and emotional health issues because we're not processing how we actually feel. We're pretending to be somebody who we're really not. We're putting on this armor, but we're never taking it off, And so what are we doing? We're numbing out. Doesn't work. Hasn't worked.
Prior to starting this episode, we were talking about this book that was recommended to me, Athena Rising. It was written by two, and I've actually talked about this in previous episodes. It was written by two naval officers, male naval officers, and the purpose of the book is to reinforce the benefit of men mentoring women in male dominated fields. And I was just wondering if you could talk about maybe some of the mentors, male mentors in your career, and how they were most effective, and maybe how some of them failed.
Yeah, so my first patrol FTO, he really had such a huge impact on my career, and I just think it's really important that everybody knows, like, if you're a field training officer in any capacity, just understand it becomes redundant because you've done it 100 times, right? But just know the impact that you're having on that person. You're just so impactful, and like they will never forget you. You're really, you're with them during the most high stress times of their life, learning how to do the job, and so you really become like imprinted in their brain. And so it's a really special job to have. And it's very important that agencies are putting the correct leaders into these positions. My FTO he was so good. We had a conversation. Remember how I told you, like when I first started, I got a bad rep. And a lot of people thought that I was a slut. Well, and I suggest every female do this, I nipped it in the ass. And when first day I got in his car, first 5 minutes, got into the car, and I looked at him and I said, I just want to be honest with you. I'm going to have a conversation with you right here, right now. I said, you've heard a lot of shit about me. Law enforcement's a small world. I want you to know I'm not a slut. I'm not going to try to hit on you. I want nothing to do with you. I don't want anybody to do with anything in this department. I have a rule, and that rule is I will not date, fuck, or marry anybody who I fucking work with. And just so you know, And he was nervous about it. He's a good looking guy. He was in a relationship and he like didn't want any problems. At the end of my FTO, he told me, he said, I just want to tell you something. That conversation you had with me that day changed everything. That day, you earned every ounce of respect right there, that moment. Not a lot of people would have done that. And he's like, I just want you to know, like, I really respected that. And that feedback really meant a lot to me. He didn't crush me. He walked me through a lot of shit. My first ever vehicle that I pulled over was right in front of the apartment I was renting, but I forgot the address. I was so scared. I'm like on the radio and I look at him and I'm like, his name was Donnie. Donnie, where the fuck are we? And he's like, Clifford, that's where you live. I'm like, I don't care. I don't know where the fuck we are. Like, what's the address? And he didn't judge me for that. He was just like, you were in the black. I'm like, oh man. But he would talk through things with me. And let me tell you, he was hard on me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but he was cool. Like, he was cool because I respect him. I still do. I still did, and I think it was because he just wasn't a huge dick. He was a dick when he needed to be. Believe me, there was plenty of shifts I left feeling like shit. But he let me learn. He created an environment where I could actually learn. And I think that's important. Just remember, like, when we're just coming down hard on everybody, can't fucking learn, We're so afraid to fuck up that we fuck up more. It's like, you're gonna mess up, but like, don't come down so hard on these people the first 12 weeks of their training, whether they are turning into this person, this first responder, that they never had to be.
Now, speaking of books, do you have any books that you would recommend?
Oh, I have a mastermind and we read books every single month. I love books. I am an Audible fanatic, and actually, I just posted on my Instagram. You can go and look. It won't be there by the time anybody looks. My Instagram is Officer Autumn. But on my Instagram this morning, I actually posted like the 5 books that I just carry around. I carry them around my house with me just in case. I'm like, and I'll sit down and read them. For law enforcement, the Bible is called Emotional Survival of Law Enforcement, although I do think firefighters could get a lot out of that as well. It's going to talk to you a lot about your hypervigilance pattern. It's going to talk to you about why you feel the way that you feel. Yeah, I'm assuming you have it.
Yeah, I actually do.
On my podcast, which is called Changing the Culture, I actually interviewed the author of that. And I'm going to tell you, one of the best interviews I've ever had. You can go listen to it. He is just phenomenal. He's a 20-year veteran police officer, and he turned into a psychologist. And this guy he's awesome. Dr. Kevin Gilmartin. So I highly recommend that book for everybody. And then I go get real like self-helpy. I'm the only self-help expert who's a female cop in the industry. Definitely doing things differently. And for me, like I told you, The Universe Has Your Back. That book is really by Gabrielle Bernstein. And listen, I'm going to be honest. I do not agree with the author's political views, but I don't care because this book is good. And it really is going to get you out of a dark time. If you're in a dark time and you need something a little self-helpish and you're open to spiritual principles, it'll get you, it'll take you out of that dark spot. I'm trying to think. I'm looking at my bookshelf too. There's tons. I'm actually writing a book. I'm in the process of it. So when that drops, y'all need to get on that because it's going to be good. But again, it's a self-help book. It's about breaking through your bullshit. I'm going to tell you my story, but I'm going to teach you how to apply everything I learned to your life and how to break through any, glass ceiling, any roadblock, any hurdles that you're going through step by step, which is really cool.
Awesome. Do you have a title for it yet?
No, not yet. No.
Yeah. I'm in the process of writing a book as well. Well, it's written. I just when I was editing, I was reconfiguring things and I screwed it all up. And I was like, I had to just shut it down. I was about to delete the whole thing. I was so mad. But Donna Michaels.
Yes. She's got a great book.
She's actually been helping me with mine because I had to just put it away and I I don't have a name for it yet either.
We both will. It just takes a little
Uh,
time.
yeah. No, I'll be looking forward to reading yours.
Hey, thank you. Likewise.
Yeah. So is there anything that we didn't talk about that maybe you'd like to touch on?
No, I don't really think so. I mean, I guess like the last thing I'd just like to leave everybody with is if you're depending on like what you're going through, like a few things I just want to tell you is like number one, you're not alone. Dave and I both share that we've both been through like some really turbulent times, being first responders. And I just think that is just so critical, especially when you first get into the job, you think you have to be this Superman or Superwoman. You got to be tough and you got to be this certain thing. And then, probably about year 7, you go, oh shit, I'm actually human. And, oh, I'm starting to feel some things, or I'm starting to have some injuries, or I'm starting to have some health issues. A lot of times that's really connected to stress and suppressed emotions. I just can't say how important it is that you need to be processing your stuff. And I have a whole company that's there to help. I know Dave's doing some stuff to help. Podcasts are good. Keep feeding your brain full of good stuff, good podcasts, good books, good audios, like good YouTube channels. Just keep filling your brain because it's so easy for us to scroll on social media and get influenced by the negativity that's going on. It's easy for us to allow our coworkers, our administrations, our command staffs to really get into our heads. And if they do that, then they own you. And I'm going to tell you right now, fucking no one owns me. And you ought to adopt that mindset because, that's a winner's mindset and you can be a winner.
Awesome. Can you give your website and again the name of your podcast?
Yeah, sure. So my podcast is called Changing the Culture. We have over 125 episodes. My podcast is geared towards self-help. So you're going to hear me riff a lot. We're about, I don't know, between 20-minute to 30-minute episodes, unless I'm interviewing somebody and it goes a little bit longer. We have some really cool interviews on there too. But you can come and find that. Go to my website, autumnclifford.com. And you can find Changing the Culture podcast on my website, or you can find it anywhere you can listen to podcasts. It's on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. It's on all of that. I hang out a lot on Instagram. Insta is kind of really where I hang. You find me at Officer Autumn. I just joined Clubhouse under Officer Autumn. And you can find me on all the socials, Autumn Clifford, everywhere.
Nice. And speaking of Donna Michaels, just I wanted to plug her book one more time. It's Courageously Broken. Awesome book.
Great book.
And I have a reading list on my website. I'm actually updating it right now, creating a whole page dedicated to books that I would recommend, whether it be leadership, philosophy, self-help stuff. So all of that can be found at hollenbachleadership.com. And I look forward to putting your book on there.
Hey, thanks, cool. Dave. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you and for being so candid. This has been just an awesome conversation. It's really
thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'll keep in touch, and I'd love to have you on again because I'm sure we'll come up with some new material to talk about over the coming months.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, cool.
Thank you for listening to this episode of From Embers to Excellence. Please visit hollenbachleadership.com for additional content. Dave's goal is to add value to as many people as possible. So if he can be of any assistance to you or someone you know, please connect with him via email or on one of his social media accounts, linked on the homepage of his website. Remember, our failures don't define us unless we let them. And the only true measure of a leader is the success of their team.